right. Shabbat Shalom. Real quick, share. Um, I'm in Hebrews. This is going to be a little history lesson too. I'm in Hebrews, right? Chapter 2. I'm going to read chapter 3 real quick, verse 12. It says, take heed, so be aware, brethren, brothers and sisters, if there be in any of you an evil heart, an evil mind, spirit of unbelief in departing, leaving from the living Elohim, the living God, the living power. All right? So take heed, brothers and sisters, brethren, if there be any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. All right? So I'm going to read in Hebrews chapter 2, uh, 9. Says, but we see Yeshua, Jesus Christ, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering. He was made a little lower than the angels by the suffering of death, the pain of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of the Most High, the highest, should taste death for every man. 10. For it became him, for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings, pain, tribulation. For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified or called are all of one, and for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brother. It says brethren, but brothers and sisters. 12, saying, I will declare your name unto my brethren, my brothers and sisters. In the midst of the church will I sing praise unto thee. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which the Most High have given me. All right, that's in Isaiah 8 and 18, Psalms 18 and 2. So again, I will put my trust in him. And again, look, I and the children which the Most High have given me. For as much then as the children, the Israelites, are partakers of flesh and blood, right? Body and blood, life, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death, through what? Through death, he might destroy him that had the power of death. That is the devil. To destroy the one that had the power of death. All right. He took on our nature. He took our nature upon him. And it was necessary. All right. So he took part of the same, like the children. Okay. He came in flesh and blood. All right. That through death he might destroy him that had the power of death. That is the devil, the serpent, Hashatan, and deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. All right, they're slaves to death, afraid of death. Verse 16, for truly he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore, in all things it behooved him, it surprised him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to the Most High, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself hath suffered, he went through pain, being tempted and suffering, and he is able to succor, comfort them that are tempted. All right. So now, let's go to Romans 8 and 3, or no, 8 and 8. It says, that is, they which are the children of the flesh, they are not the children of the Most High, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. They counted for the children, right? But I'm looking for 8 and 8. No, 8 and 2. I'm sorry. Romans 8 and 2. It says, for the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Yeshua have made me free from the law of sin and death. That's right. And for what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, through the body, the Most High sending his own Son, Yeshua, in the likeness of sinful flesh. And for sin condemns sin in the flesh. He destroyed it in the body. All right. So he came like us. All right. So I'm in Hebrews 9 and 4. It says, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants, the testaments, and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High and the promises. All right. So I just wanted to share those things. All right. So I wanted to share this history in the Jesuits. All right. It says the Jesuits, they call themselves the Society of Jesus. That's what they call themselves. All right. So there's a few things that I wanted to get out of here on the Immaculate Conception. Let me find it. I think it's in page, the Immaculate Conception Doctrine. It's in page 245. And we're going to read it. This book is by Manfred Bartel. All right. So page 245. It says Pius continued to reign as an absolute monarch in his principal capacity of supreme pontiff of the Catholic Church, and perhaps it is not surprising that he uh, was now determined to safeguard the spiritual frontiers of the church at least, or if possible, even to expand them at the expense of the secular forces of liberalism and modernity by means of three dramatic measures. The first dramatic measure was to elevate the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, previously the subject of considerable philosophical speculation, to the level of unquestionable dogma. The second was to draw the boundaries between the higher ground of Catholic orthodoxy and the insalubrious lowlands of modern thought, much more sharply in the so-called syllabus of errors and the Encyclia Quanta Cura. The third was to affirm his own position as the supreme arbiter of all such matters of belief by enunciating, uh, enunciating the doctrine of papal infallibility. The Jesuits played a prominent role in the adoption of all three of these measures, especially the first, a goal that was also persuaded, of course, and energetically, and even autocratically. According to some historians, by Pius himself, the bull Infallibilis Deus was handed down on December 18th, 1854, in the presence of 200 bishops, which concerned the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, and that is that the Virgin Mary herself was, from the moment of conception, by the particular grace and the goodness of Almighty God, immaculate and free from all taint of original sin. And this is not to be confused with the doctrine of the virgin birth, by the way, which refers to Christ's conception rather than Mary's. The syllabus of errors was published 10 years later in 1864, in which 80 erroneous propositions were specifically rejected, and of course, all good Catholics were intended to do the same among them. And I'll read it. It says, the church should never interfere with philosophy, but should leave it free to correct itself. Mankind can find the path to eternal salvation in every religion. The church is to be separated from the state, and the state from the church. Mhm. And I think I'll leave it there. There's more on it, but I don't want to get too going to it too deep. Um, Let me see here. These Jesuits was something else. Um, Now, there's one more reference. Let me get it. Hmm. 10, 11, 245, 227. Okay. 277. Page 277. Let's see. Trying to figure out where I can start. Says Pius XII of anti-Semitism as such, but rather of the crime described by General Arupe as deliberate inaction. Though certainly the record of the church and our century is tainted with a great deal of both, theologians have even coined the term anti-Judaism to distinguish purely religious prejudice, of which Luther is a notorious example. From race hatred of the Nazi variety, the term has not achieved much currency, since in practice the two are not always distinct, and in any case, the development of political anti-Semitism in Europe in the 20th century is inconceivable without the background of religious anti-Judaism that is virtually as ancient as Christianity itself. During the Nazi period, certain Catholic writers even attempted to ensure the racial purity of the principal figures of the New Testament by various ingenious dialectical exercises. Alfred Mergler solemnly explained in a publication called Catholica in 1933, okay, a publication called Catholica in 1933 that the doctrine of the virgin birth has freed our Redeemer from any biological connection with his people on his father's side. Joseph matters, but let's read this again. There's a publication, Google it, called Catholica in 1933 that the doctrine of the virgin birth has freed our Redeemer from any biological connection with his people on his father's side. And similarly, the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception has lifted up his mother from amidst the corruption of original sin. Everybody that came from Adam and Eve was under original sin, but she wasn't, supposedly. So it says the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception has lifted up his mother from amidst the corruption of original sin, which was decreed for the Jews and the pagans. This was decreed, made a law for the Jews and the pagans, and at the same time freed her from the imprint of this corruption, which is particularly apparent in Jewish secularism. Even the Jesuit paper Voices of the Times contained an occasional echo of this sort of triggered nonsense, as when a telltale phrase like, for the sake of the racial purity of its prosperity, and the church was always the most vigilant guardian of the purity of the Roman and later the Germanic races, turns up in an article entitled Judah and Rome, written by a popular religious writer, Hugo Reiner, the brother of Professor Karl Reiner, S.J., in 1934. But in those days, it was actions rather than words that counted most, and a surprising number of Jesuits risked their lives to help save, it says, Jewish refugees and fugitives from Hitler's final solution. They received too little recognition when the need for secrecy was finally at an end. But the name of Father whoever Lodger Born, who set up a way station in Vienna to assist, it says, Jewish fugitives from the Nazis at the request of the bishops of the Archdiocese, at least deserves to be mentioned in this connection. All right. And it says, curiously enough, the Jesuit order, has always had a reputation as a refuge for Jewish converts. All right. And Ignatius Secretary Juan de Planco was accused by his adversaries within the order of being a new Christian and baptized Jews, especially those whose conversions were less than sincere, were called in Spain and Portugal. Ignatius himself was hardly likely to have been troubled by such an accusation. What a stroke of luck. He once said to be related to Christ, our Lord, and his Holy Mother, the Blessed Virgin. All right. Um, Perhaps this is what led to the French writer Roger Pierrefitte to suggest that Ignatius himself was of Jewish descent, since he offers no other evidence for this conjecture. All right. All right. So, um, now let's see. And there's more on that, but I'll leave it there. Um, there's more on it. But this is something that I was looking at in the index. I thought it was interesting. It says Immaculate Conception Doctrine and Influences of. Uh, it even talks about Hitler on it. Immaculate Conception and Doctrine of Racial Purity. Um, and it talks about that also. But it talks about all these different popes um, and all the wicked things that they're doing. If you go and look and read uh, the Jesuits, it's a lot that goes into what they are doing in their missions in different countries that they went to. But we're going to quickly go to Wisdom of Solomon. And Wisdom of Solomon. And chapter 7, verse 1, it says, I myself also am a mortal man, like to all, an offspring of him that was first made of the earth, and in my mother's womb was fashioned to be flesh in the time of 10 months, being compacted in blood of the seed of man, and the pleasure that came with sleep. And when I was born, I drew in the common air and fell upon the earth, which is of like nature. And the first voice which I uttered was crying, as all others do. I was nursed in swaddling clothes, and that with care. For there is no king that had any other beginning of birth. For all men have one entrance unto life, and the like and the same going out. All right. So that's that on that.